Good afternoon. My name is Irana Pavlova. I'm European Projects Manager at GATE, and I will be moderating this session. I come to you with a picture that represents our vision for accepted, understood, trusted, and human-empowering AI. Welcome to our panel on trustworthy, ethical, and explainable AI. We are witnessing the penetration of AI in all the economic sectors and all the social spheres. And this penetration brings a lot of different perspectives. On the positive side, it brings clear benefits. At the sessions tomorrow, you will be able to learn how AI helps us to prevent, to cure diseases such as Alzheimer's, and even to fight pandemics as COVID. And also can help us manage and optimize our complex city environments and to find disinformation and to fight against it. On the other side, it brings a lot of challenges which are related to the legal and ethical implications and also its trustworthiness. There are still many open questions. How to develop AI systems and applications that are transparent and responsive, and how to make people trust in AI and not to perceive it as a threat, how to implement all the recommendations of the European High-Level Working Group on AI that are guiding us towards AI that is human empowering, that is providing for technical robustness and safety, that is ensuring data privacy and protection together with fairness, non-discrimination, diversity, and it's also ensuring transparency, explainability, and accountability. And all of this with the aim to benefit for the people and for the businesses. In order to answer these questions, I have here with me, allow me to use this phrase, even we are not physically together, but we are united by our vision, Anna Falander from AI Sustainability Sweden, Professor Gania Angelova from Bulgarian Academy of Sciences, Anderson Santana de Oliveira from SAP Research, France, and also shortly we'll be joining Andrea Passarella from CNR, Italy. And together with them, we will try to present to you the different views. They will have their presentations, and afterwards, I believe we will have an interesting and insightful discussion. Before in the preparation of this session, we have asked our guests to prepare a small object, an object that they relate to the topic of our session and also to their speeches. So I'm now eager and curious to learn what their objects are. So let us have our first speaker, our keynote, Anna Falander, who is the founder of AI Sustainability Center Sweden. And Anna is also a researcher, a leader, and advisor to the European Parliament on ethical AI. Welcome, Anna. The floor is yours, and please share with us what is your object.
Thank you, Irena, and thank you for inviting me as a keynote. So my object for my keynote and this section is actually these glasses. One perspective on artificial intelligence doesn't form the entire risk exhaustion of the risk landscape. So putting different glasses and seeing different lenses and different perspectives on things is crucial when working with governing ethical AI.
Thank you very much, Anna. This is
so that is my gadget, and I will put my lenses on top of my head and use my internal integrated perspectives that I have worked with since 2016, and I would want to share my presentation slides. So I am the founder of AI Sustainability Center, and this logo that you see, we want that to be an independent validator or proof of ethical and responsible AI. We believe that we need, or organizations needs, fast, frictionless highways to innovate, and to innovate applications that humans can trust. So AI will be like electricity going forward. We won't even mention it in a business model context, or even in our everyday lives. But there are some things that we need to put into focus before we can embrace AI, and that is what I've been working on since 2016. And now we have a platform for an ethical AI governance platform for screening, assessing, auditing, and mitigating ethical AI. And how do we do this? Well, we do this by three most important things: is that we activate cross-functional teams to govern AI, hence the glasses. And we also dismantle the ethical considerations that you need to unfold if you want to govern AI responsibly. But also we use reporting metrics in order to help the organizations we work with report their ethical AI performance. So we say that we are an organizational orchestration of ethical AI. And when I think about factors driving this, is that it's when it comes to reporting, like, why do we have to screen for ethical exposure? Why do we have to assess whether we are under certain regulation, and why do we have to control for it? Well, if it's not regulated, one factor is that it will be regulated. It is coming into force in 2024 by the EU. And the second thing is the ESG, and this is also a very important driver to be able to report your performance on the S and the G, environmental, sustainability, social and governance reporting for allocating money and finances in this low rate environment. But we also have the social concern. So that's the three driving forces. And if we come to the next slide, I will talk about what is unique with our approach. We started to looking at this from an organizational and macro economic perspective. We were convinced from the beginning that we were to solve the problem and not just to talk about the problems. And we started with looking at the problem from the root cause in an organization, and looking at these new business models, new data-driven and AI business models. That is, if you have a business model, you decrease the costs, you reduce all spill along the value chains, and you bring up the revenue. So you have by really tailored and deep client relationships. So these business models with these algorithms that are targeted towards profits, efficiency, increased engagement, clicks, the business models, they go on acid. So with that said, there is a new type of negative externality, a new type of digital pollution that we have to measure and incorporate into the business model. So traditional sustainability look at pollution or environmental pollution, and then most of the time the regulators, they regulate, and the consumers, clients, they have a concern. So these two forces, they drive the organizations to integrate this into the business model. The reason that this has taken so long why we've been working in silos for so long is that as AI is different, it is self-scaling and self-learning in a black box. The people that should honor a functioning market economy be able to opt in or opt out based on their preferences, they have asymmetric information. Another thing is that the network economy is based on that people want to be where everyone else is. So the monopoly situation that we encourage, when Facebook does something wrong, there's no alternative to turn to. That's another reason. And the other is that the regulation has also been kind of depending on GDPR, but there hasn't been enough knowledge on how to regulate this accurately or in the right way. So the problem that we are solving at the AI Sustainability Center is that we look at this from a way that you have to comply to upcoming regulation, but there's still business risks that are very special to your own business context that you can't control for if you don't let in cross-functional teams, or if you don't awake the organization for the ethical consideration. So let me just go through how really fast how our methodology works. So we've said that, okay, this dark cloud of negative externality of digital pollution, let's classify these risks. So we took 6 risks, so that it's privacy intrusion, discrimination, lost autonomy, disinformation, fake news, social exclusion, and harm to safety. So with this all of these glasses and the perspective, we exhausted the risk landscape, and we said, okay, what are the root causes looking from an organizational perspective? And we categorized the 4 unintended pitfalls. So the first one is immature AI or data. So when the data is not sufficient, or the AI is, for example, hasn't been trained, and there's no market readiness threshold. And the other one is data bias, when the data is not reflecting the reality or the preferred reality, but who's to say, who's to validate the data? And also the bias of the creator, how do you code your values, your organizational values into your AI solutions? And there's so many ethical considerations that we have to dismantle. And also the misuse or overuse of data. So even though you are GDPR compliant, AI can create a lot of privacy intrusion for you. So we said that, okay, we have these risks, but on the other side, there's actually a digital environment that is reflecting what we aim in the physical world. So we turn these risks and we say, what we want privacy, fairness, autonomy, we want information and democracy, we want safety and inclusion. And we say, okay, if we have these pitfalls, we want to achieve those AI ethical declarations. In order to do that, you have to achieve the fundamentals of, and you've heard these terms before, but you have to be able to have explainability in your organization. Not only the tech team, but the legal people have to understand, in the business area. And you need to have transparency to your stakeholders, but also within the people working with the AI. And you need accountability. You need that in your organization and your processes, someone who's accountable. And then you need the governance. That is a new cross-functional way of working with it. So this is the way we approach it. And please, next slide. I'm soon going to show you the results, because based on this methodology, the next slide says that this is, because what we do is an screening and an assessment, and you all have a choice, because if you continue to pollute, you will get into vast reputational, legal, and financial risks. So human values in AI, that's an opportunity to strengthen brand. It's not about, when you really find out what your weakness are and how you're exposed to risks, you can turn that into a business opportunity and strengthen trust. Most importantly, it's actually very urgent because we have an upcoming regulation and we have to create processes, documentation, and knowledge, and ways to report in order to comply. But next slide, please. When I talked about ethical considerations, I'm going to take this slide before the other. There are the more AI the more ethical considerations on executive levels we have to raise up. There's a trade-off between explainability and accuracy, fairness and precision, profits and values. How many calories do we want to nudge in a recommendation engine? How much credit consumption do I, as a retailer, have as a third-party supplier? How can I sign in to their non-existing ethical principles? So there are a lot of ways you can, in the technical silo, that you can adjust to fairness in the technical silo, but it doesn't relate to the business context and it doesn't relate to the legal landscape. So this is an explanation. This is an example of a sensor AI application that an AI developer would have a fairness tool and hence think we're doing fairness, so we don't have to worry about ethical AI. So there's always a trade-off. So if you discriminate women, you might have super good accuracy. So you have to iterate between those two. But if you don't have the accuracy, depending on how harmful a non-accuracy result could be, it's always depending on the context. Is the patient at home in the sofa running, or is it in the doctor's office? And also when it comes to legal aspect, what does discrimination mean in different contexts? So the next slide, please. This is just to show how we work with these ethical considerations on our ethical platform. But it is so the new black to talk about AI governance and to talk about how you actually have guidelines and framework to have this orchestration that you need. And next slide, please. And we really do think that, I'm going to end in a couple of seconds. We do think that this new proposed legislation on AI, where Margarete Vestager says that we are going to compete with AI innovations where human values are kept. And this will give us competitiveness. And when you have a clear agenda, because critics have said that this will hamper innovation and growth and productivity, and it will hit small companies more than large. I believe that real clarity, and you're guiding companies, if they're small or big, to realize when they not have reputational risks. So I would say, from a competitive perspective and a productive perspective, this is a very good news. Next picture, please. Yeah, so I'm running out of time, but the way that we look at it is to actually encourage companies from the technical, legal, and societal perspective that we look at things, to see where do I have high risks AI applications, because you have to then report to an EU database. And when do I have unregulated risks that are business risks, and how can I turn this into a competitive edge and a business opportunity? And how do I audit this? And how do I show the world that we are taking responsible data and AI into standards, processes, and on top of executive agenda? Thank you so much. I will again use these glasses as metaphor, because I have not been able to do this without my multidisciplinary research group at the Royal Institute of technology, and getting in a group with different sectors, cross industries, cross skills to exhaust the risk landscape here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna, for this really comprehensive view and bringing on the table how important it is to discover all the different perspectives, aspects, and level of ethical AI, and how important it is to involve all the stakeholders during this process. And now we will put another glasses, and we are going to a more political perspective, the policymaker perspective. It's my pleasure to introduce Professor Galia Angiova, who is the director of Institute of Information and Communication Technologies at Bulgarian Academy of Sciences. And Galia is also the main driver, the main author of the Bulgarian National AI Strategy. Welcome, Galia, and please share with us what is your object.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation first, and let me say a few words about Bulgaria and where we are. And could you please show my presentation, and I'll show you the object there in the presentation. Oh, the previous slide, perhaps. Thank you. I would like to say a few words how this document was developed and what remains to be done. And in my view, from the academic perspective, let me say what we have to do from now on. Some things are running, others expect to be planned, third expect to be funded. So we are in a dynamic situation where things are moving, and I hope that someday all the things will be convergent, probably in 1 year, and we'll have more normative documents and more clear plans how to act to develop AI. As Anna said, and I'm very grateful for her talk, the European Commission believes that the notion of trustworthy AI will give to Europe substantial priorities and business competitive priorities, just because people like to work with trustful services, products, etc. And we believe that development of legal and ethical framework will give to Europe substantial market gains. And this is something typical, as Anna said, to the European approach to artificial intelligence. Certainly from technological perspective, and from the number, judging from the number of papers, etc., people who work in the area, one can say that the United States and China are winning the race, but we stay on the legal and ethical point of view. What I find also very typical is the engagement of the Commission of the European Union to collect and open publicly high-quality big data. And I like very much that the Commission invests so much in the development of data spaces where everybody can have access to high-quality data from various domains and exercise to develop new products, new services. This is also something typical for Europe. It's remarkable also for Europe, because I read many strategies during the last year, that we take care, especially for the small and medium-sized enterprises. Very often they have no capacity to develop new products or even to access data. So the Commission engages its services and the states to provide access to everyone to data, to students, to small and mini enterprises, and so on. And only in Europe, in the European normative document, you find such care about information to all the population, to raise the computer literacy, the literacy in artificial intelligence, to how to teach the people that it is safe and should be accepted. So this is typical for the European document. And certainly when the Commission published all these documents during the last 3 years, it called all the member states to join the effort to support it. And there were many individual activities, like the AI course produced in Finland, for instance, translated to every European languages, which is very good introduction and good explanation to artificial intelligence. So all countries were invited to develop their national strategies. This happened 2018, I think, about 3 years ago. And let me show you what was the situation in April. This is the last document which I saw. This is Annex 2 to the coordinated plan on artificial intelligence, which was updated, say, 8 months ago. And we see here that, well, it happens rarely, but sometimes it happens. Bulgaria is not the last one who misses documents and national strategies. So our strategy was published, our conception was published last December. Certainly to develop such a document is not an easy task, because it requires engagement of many stakeholders who looked at the things from various perspectives. And that's why people need time to start and to coordinate the efforts. The Bulgarian Academy of Sciences was very inspired, a group of us, that in 2018, a group of French mathematicians, led by the famous mathematician Villani, helped for the development of the French conception to artificial intelligence. And then we said, okay, we also join forces and provide some expert view on what happens in Europe. And in mid-June, 2 years ago, we produced one overview and analysis of the documents published by the Commission and meanwhile by many other countries like China, in the United States, in Canada. A lot of things were done there. So this is a Canadian picture coming from one Canadian report. 1 year later, we continued studying the document and proposed a preliminary our vision how was for the development of artificial intelligence could look like, and this happened more than 1 year ago. And based on these documents and our activity, I would say it was the trigger. These documents were broadly discussed. Many people proposed valuable new comments, suggestions. Others criticized us strongly. Anyway, there was lively discussion, and then the Ministry of Transport, Information Technology and Communication joined to this. Actually, they organized this discussion. They changed the administrative and political conception, and actually reflecting all the comments for the discussion, we produced this document, which was approved by the Council of Ministers last December. But there is still no action plan and particular details what will be done year by year and from where the funding will come. Actually, this is the next important question. And when Irena told me that I have to bring a small subject, I said that I bring this illustration, which was created by our colleagues, and which symbolizes our view to artificial intelligence. The human is in front, and the human brain somehow leads, and behind the human stays the avatar of artificial intelligence. So to me, this is the symbol of what will happen in the next, say, 7-10 years, how the concept, the products and services will be implemented, and practically how they will enter our life, still under strict control, at least in Europe, of human beings. And in a sense, this concerns autonomous vehicles as well, although autonomy is another big topic. What is contained in our strategy? At first, the first topic in most of the European strategies is that one needs reliable infrastructure. This is high-performance computing, 5G, internet, data spaces, etc., etc. But this is the obligatory physical prerequisite to talk about advanced artificial intelligence. Second, most countries in Europe, and including Bulgaria, you need to plan strengthening the research capacity, and you need to be ambitious and aim for scientific excellence, because this is also part of the competition in the world. Who will produce better algorithms? Who will cover most advanced topics in reasoning? For instance, using abstraction and novel technologies to integrate the heterogeneous data we have. So this, competition is not only technological, it is also scientific. And the Commission, as well as the countries, considered various measures to strengthen the research capacity and in the integration of European scientists. We see this today in Horizon Europe with the many projects funded for integration of AI in the other disciplines. Certainly, you have to increase the knowledge about AI in your own country, starting from schools, support the innovation and increase the links between academy and business. Trust in the society is something crucial, at least for Europe. People will not accept these novel trends if they don't feel safety. And something which is also very important and will be not a problem, but a task for small countries like Bulgaria. We have to adopt our legal framework to the European laws that appear. For instance, now we have the proposal of the European Act for Artificial Intelligence, so we have to follow the international regulatory and ethical standards, because some other Bulgarian laws might depend on these changes that will happen. And I would like to finish soon.
To consider the time, please.
The proposal in this strategy was to develop an action plan, as I said, with particular list of things to be done for the first 2 or 3 years, showing the source of financing, and as well as we still negotiate the operational programs and plan for resilience and resilience facility with the European Commission. Perhaps some money could be taken, some funding can be taken from there, but all this is not finished yet, and the process of the negotiation is not finished. A fundamental proposal for Bulgaria was to focus on technological specialization in the field of data economy, because we lack critical mass of leading industrial companies in the AI sector. We have very good companies and very ambitious IT industry, but still, certainly we are a small country with relatively limited capacity. So talking about priorities, we have to select some of them and perhaps not be so active in the others. One of the proposals was to focus on software industry and the application of AI methods in software development when Bulgarian groups have achievements and built-in AI in system for prevention of hybrid attacks. Certainly, at that time when this text was written, the pandemic only started and we proposed to start thinking about AI applications for educational purposes. E-learning was just entering the mass practice, and it was necessary somehow to help people to react to this new trend. In Europe, last year in June, I think, the Commission published a very nice service, a very nice report, how AI applications enter in the public services. And frankly speaking, you see that all over Europe, it is not fast, it is not easy. Most of the countries use chatbots, intelligent digital systems, very rarely image recognition and expert systems. Almost no one uses for public services autonomous vehicles. I think only in one airport in Finland they have autonomous cars driving luggage from the airports to the planes, but mostly these are IT projects dealing with the man-machine dialogues. One big field is the intelligent agriculture. Bulgaria funded 2-3 big projects during the last 1 year in this field. All of them are funded via the Ministry of Education and Science. Today, I would put AI for the Green Deal perhaps as leading priority, but certainly AI applications in healthcare are very important. What are the good chances at the moment? First, we built sufficiently very big infrastructural change using the funds of the European Structural and Cohesion funds. The Ministry of Education and Science constantly increases the investment in large infrastructures in projects related to artificial intelligence. And the new government looks ready for structural changes, establishing ministries and agencies dealing with innovations and e-government. And now we have active support by the EU in many respects. We had the Digital Europe program, Horizon Europe, and also in the framework of all development in Europe, we certainly use the EU documents, and this helps a lot to decide where we go and what we have to do and so on. And probably because of the pandemics, I don't know, but we have a wave of young Bulgarians returning from abroad. So this is something which is important not only for the industrial sector, but also for the academy. As I said, we have successful IT industry, and let me just finish with one amusing report. About 1 year ago, I think also in June, the Commission published a study on the deployment of AI technologies across Europe. From Bulgaria, 380 companies took part in the interviews, and they reported that 54% use at least one AI technology, 31% use at least 2 technologies, 11% plan to use AI over the next 2 years, and According to these interests shown by companies from small to medium-sized and large companies, we are among the top 3 countries in the EU, and I think this is very promising. Perhaps we are not a big country, but those who are active and even economically active see the necessity of changes and adoption of new technologies. And this is the conclusion. We have a lot of problems, lack of skilled people, as the colleague from the e-government agency said, very low level of computer literacy. You somehow need to start with the basic training, all types of training. The Ministry of Education and Science does a lot in this respect. As I said, there are some political changes, and this requires time. It requires time to prepare the national strategic documents, but I hope that this will happen in the next year. So that's all. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Galia, for your presentation. Indeed, the important first step is already done, but we need to be very active. We need to onboard the industry, the academia, the government as well, in order to do the next steps, which are very important so that Bulgaria can catch up with the European pace. Thank you very much. And now going to a more practical, more industrial perspective. I'm pleased to introduce Anderson Santana de Oliveira, who is a senior researcher at SAP Research, Security Research, and he is also leading the project on trustworthy AI. Anderson is also working on fair and data-preserving machine algorithms. So Anderson, the floor is yours, and please be very punctual because we are lagging behind the time. And of course, what is your object?
So, yes, I thought about a lot about the question, and I decided to use my smartphone as the object because it's the gateway for entering the digital world, right? You have AI on it, lots of AI, and you can also have extremely good performance in certain tasks. Like you are very satisfied with the AI, like when you dictate and it writes down what you're dictating. It has very good performance, but you can also be very disappointed sometimes with some recommendations you get in several media or social media or in several different feeds, and you ask yourself why I'm getting this, right? What's happening to my data? So I think it's a good example of the state of artificial intelligence today. You have the best, and you can also have the less good stuff, let's say. Today I will talk about trustworthy, explainable, and ethical AI at SAP and the many efforts the company has been doing recently on that area. So it can move on to the next slide, please. And there's some advance to the end of the animations. SAP has a product portfolio where we are using AI in several instances, several levels since a few years already. So first, customers can get AI into the standard software that are natively embedded. So for instance, in this first layer, you can see that SAP has several applications where AI is playing a role in automating tasks, reducing errors, accelerating processes, and that comes with no effort as the customers hire these applications and deploy in their companies. They have it out of the box, right? These business applications. But at the same time, at the platform level, SAP is offering AI business services where partners, customers, and our own development organizations can extend existing applications with AI-enabled features in an easy way, in an easy-to-consume way, including low code integrations, right? So you don't need to be necessarily an AI expert to benefit from AI capabilities offered by the business technology platform of SAP using the AI business services that are available there. So you can have several examples like conversational AI, robotic process automation, and the documentation extraction, and so on. And finally, at the let's say core level, you have several data tools, data management tools that allows one to integrate link data, process data, and prepare for building machine learning models from scratch. And you can deploy those models in SAP, in the SAP environment, in the SAP platforms, and extend your applications, bringing your own models, let's say. So these many efforts into bringing AI into our products and services have been done in an organized way, following ethical AI principles. So if you can move to the next slide, please. SAP has embraced the ethical AI since the beginning. So several years ago, we started this initiative. We created principles that are well known in the today, right? So driving our AI development. We have created an AI steering committee that is composed by the senior leadership teams, senior leadership leaders from different parts of our organization. The ethical AI principles are backed by the board members, right? So we also created an external AI advisory panel that, by the way, met last week. I was also part of that meeting, and all of these happened before people were talking about an EU regulation about AI, right? So, for instance, this the AI ethics panel, advisory panel, has been created in 2018, and these principles are being communicated. Developers are being educated about it, and this has been the drive principles that we have in the company. So if you move to the next slide, right, this has helped us to create not only internal standards, policies, procedures, but also on a more, let's say, educative sense. SAP has created what we call a Ethical AI Handbook that has been published internally for the whole group of our more than 30,000 developers. So SAP has more than 100,000 worldwide, and in the development organizations have around 30,000 developers. Of course, not all of them are doing AI, but we have been working on a lot on education about these AI principles. And in this handbook, for instance, we are mapping two sets of dimensions here. On the left, you have the ethical AI dimension, and on the right, you have the product development stages, right? The AI system development lifecycle. And in this handbook, you can have clear guidance to different roles involved in these different steps of the product development regarding the intent of an AI systems, the impact that they have. They can have data protection issues, threats, and risks, take into account the societal impact and any disparate impact that the system may have in different groups of individuals. The guidance on how to contact the internal ethics expert group, and other considerations regarding model performance and how to keep humans in the loop. Very important question. So there are clear guidance where people can refer to when creating and deploying AI embedded AI-based software in our products and services. So this is overall company effort, right? There are ongoing initiatives regarding trustworthy AI, and it's a new topic to many organizations. So we are progressing firmly and consistently in those aspects. Now, if we move to the next step, like what our team, SAP Security Research, can do with respect to all of that, right? So we are a team of researchers, and we are working on several aspects of machine learning, either in securing machine learning systems, applying machine learning in security problems. So this is the job of my group. In the Trustworthy AI project in SAP Security Research, we have the goal of supporting responsible AI with technology, because we are technologists, right? We are technical guys, and we do research. We are researchers, so that's the way you can contribute. So the current research focus of this project is on privacy and fairness. So we are investigating how to find the optimal compromise between privacy and utility when you create machine learning models. We are using differential privacy, and differential privacy adds noise to the training process. Therefore, you lose utility. But in order not to compromise the privacy of your system, you need to decide how much noise to add, not to expose the data to attacks, right? To inference attacks, membership inference attacks. So we are working on this. And another topic that we are working on that's more related to preventing biases or reducing biases, how to find the best model architectures that can be trained in a privacy-preserving way, such that the disparate impact that differential privacy can bring to the individuals, to the minorities in the data, can be reduced, right? So these are the two most important research questions we are currently working on in the group. And then to finalize on the next slide, well, I'll be open for questions, and that's my speech today, giving this overview of ethical AI in the company. I also need to mention that the company has made several efforts in explainability, for instance, open sourcing projects about explainability, and our UX design team has done a tremendous effort into creating frameworks where you can integrate explainability into the user interfaces, which is a great job they have done. So so that's it from my part.
Thank you very much, Anderson. It's really impressive how big technology provider like SAP is approaching very responsibly the ethical AI issues, and considering also the fairness and data privacy. And now let's hear the voice of the ones that are responsible for developing advanced algorithms that are providing for explainability and also for transparency. And it's my pleasure to welcome Andrea Passarella, who is the Research Director of Institute of Informatics and Telematics of the National Research Council of Italy. And he is also coordinating the EU-funded Social Explainable AI project, in which we are also collaborating with them. So welcome, Andrea, and what is your object?
Hello, Irena. Hello, everyone. Thanks for your kind introduction. So my object is this one. Is a couple of I don't know if you can see it. Yes. Okay. Here it is. It is a couple of Bluetooth earphones, and I will explain why it is my object at the end of my talk, if you don't mind. So a little bit of suspense. So let's go to the slides. Okay, so my talk is about explainability in decentralized social artificial intelligence, which is one of the key topics of the project that Irena was mentioning, the Social Explainable AI project, which I'm coordinating and involves also Sofia University and Gate. So where do we start from? We start from the observation that more and more artificial intelligence is decentralizing itself. So we are moving from a technical standpoint from the, let's say, first wave model of artificial intelligence where everything is centralized and where the model is that you push data to a big data center and everything happens there. Towards a model where AI is more decentralized. So in centralized AI, there are several issues. There is a concept that is called data gravity. This comes from a Cisco definition, which basically observes that, okay, the data is not in the center. The data is not in the data center. All the data are actually generated on the user devices, so at the periphery of the network, and have to be brought to the centers. So as the traffic increases, this poses tremendous challenges in managing it from a technical standpoint and also from a non-technical standpoint. There are big privacy issues because basically users lose control of their data in this model, and trustworthiness is also a problem because you actually don't know where your data are stored, how they are used. So think, for example, to all the problems of the social networks in terms of privacy and trustworthiness that we are witnessing today. Also because of these reasons, the model is going to be more and more decentralized, where you don't have to move your data to central locations where they are elaborated, but you keep the data local. And the local devices, such as your smartphones, for example, elaborate them and then collaborate between each other in order to build, to extract knowledge out of the data. So this solves some of the issues that I mentioned, but poses very exciting challenges from a research standpoint, because you don't have anymore a central control point, so you have a distributed controlled system. You might have malicious behaviors because you have many more agents into the picture. And a very interesting challenge that is what we address in the social explainable AI problem is that AI becomes also, I mean, there is a social dimension, that human-centric dimension. Because as the data are close to the users that are generating them, and as the models are derived and are built on the user devices, then the user devices become sort of proxies of the users in the cyber environment, and by collaborating with each other, they somehow mimic the way in which their users collaborate and exchange information and trust each other. So basically, the decentralized artificial intelligence ecosystem becomes a social aware environment, because the devices where artificial intelligence agents are running are very close to the users, and the way in which they collaborate should take into account the individual behavior of the users and the social behavior of the users. And this, as I will discuss in the following, addresses also trustworthiness and the human-centric principles. And this is what we investigate in the social artificial intelligence problem. When it comes to explainability, there are many more issues here, because you have the usual issues related to explanation of artificial intelligence models that you also have in centralized settings. But then if you have such a decentralized ecosystem and the different agents that build together a global model, then you have to explain what the global model is, if there is a unique global model. In those systems, sometimes you don't have a unique global model. You might have different models that sort of converge and dominate in different parts of the distributed environment. So at the level, for example, of a social community, one particular model may emerge, that is the sort of agreement between the different agents of that community. And in other parts of your distributed system, other models emerge. So you have to explain why this is the case and what the different models tell to the users. And you might have hierarchies of explanations, because you can aggregate the individual models at the community level, and those models can take decisions that are different from what the local individual models would do, and you have to explain why it is the case. And again, if you move from the community level to a global level, you have other models, possibly different models that you have to explain. So these are the challenges we want to address in this project, Social Explainable AI, which is a 3-year project. which involves partners from across Europe, from Italy, from Austria, from Poland, the UK, Bulgaria, and Estonia. So what is the vision that we take is that, as I say, the future of artificial intelligence is not going to be centralized, but it's going to be a decentralized environment on top where artificial intelligence agents work on individual devices of the individual users and collaborate. So they collaborate on top of a social network that represents not only the communication unities between users, but also their social relationships and therefore their social behavior. And because of that, those systems have to be built by introducing human-centric design principles. So when we build new algorithms in this scenario, we have to factor in the way the humans interact with each other as a way to guide the artificial intelligence models to extract knowledge and to exchange information between them. And very important, we strive to keep explainability at all levels of this complex ecosystem. And in order to do that, we built on 4 pillars. The first one, we call it the PIVE. The second one, the SciGraph. The third one, the collective explainable machine learning level. And the fourth pillar is validation. So let me briefly give you a glimpse of what we address challenges in each of these pillars. So when you go to the PIVE is essentially the first pillar is the one that deals with the local models at the individual devices. And here already the human dimension kicks in, because in our ecosystem, the PIVE, the personal AI valet, how we call it, is essentially a proxy that runs in one of the user personal devices that collects data about the user, derives knowledge out of it through local AI models. But in doing so, it has to take into consideration the way the user behaves individually and socially. And explainability here is if you wish, is the more classical view of explainability. We have local artificial intelligence models that need to be explainable. Then we move to the social network level. So the different PIVEs, so the agents under control of the user, interact with each other. And they exchange either data or local models through this social network. And the way they aggregate the information that comes from the other nodes is a byproduct of the social dimension. So this mimics very well the way we exchange information and extract knowledge by, for example, discussing with each other. When I get some information from one of my best friends, I have a trust level in that information that is different from the case where I get exactly the same information, but from the first person that I encounter in the convenience store close to my house. And why is that the case? Because the social links between me and those two other actors are different. So in Sci, we incorporate these kind of models in the way that nodes exchange models and information between them and build collectively knowledge. And explainability, in this case, is explainability also by graph analysis, meaning that the structure of the social network of the users is a way also to explain why certain emergent properties emerge out of this system. And at the global level, on top of the SciGraph, we have a global ecosystem where the local models, where we have aggregated model at the community level, and we have global models. As I was saying in the first slide, we have a hierarchy of artificial intelligence component, and we have to make sure that all of them are explainable. So assume, for example, that the model is something that recommends or is a distributed voting system. So the model needs to explain why a certain community has taken a certain choice, which might be different to the choice that a single individual would take in isolation. It might be also different from the choice that will be taken by the entire system made up of different social communities. So this hierarchy of explanation must be explained to the users in order to build trustness in this kind of systems. And of course, there are a lot of issues also related to trustworthiness, to malicious behavior, and so on and so forth to take into consideration. And after developing this algorithm, and this is the last slide, we are going to test them in different use cases, going from traffic optimization, so smart cities environment, to online disinformation, to pandemic control. So this is a very, very bird's eye view on what we are going to do in the next 3 years. Why my gadget of choice is the headphones? Because right now you can think of it as a very, very dumb device. What I do with it is just listening to my music. But in the very near future, even this small gadget will become something that has intelligence in it. And because it is very close to me and I use them so often, daily routine, those dumb devices will be able to interpret the way I interact with others and with the cyber ecosystem. And by incorporating artificial intelligence into them, they will be one of the gateways of myself into this complex, social aware artificial intelligence ecosystem. So this is the dimensions that we are going to explore. We are very exciting. We think this is the next wave of artificial intelligence in research, and we are happy to develop this also in collaboration with GATE. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Andrea, for sharing the challenges, but also the interesting and very promising approaches towards the explainable and the transparent AI. Thank you all for your presentations. Unfortunately, we are a bit lagging behind the time, but I think that it was very important to bring all these interesting, important aspects on the table and to present them to our audience. So I will allow myself just 2 questions, and I will relate them. So we are having here the perspective of the people that are responsible for ensuring that AI is ethical and it's also trustful, but we are missing a bit the perspective of the end users, the people, although we are all using AI in our everyday life and work. So my question is how to make people trust in AI and not too afraid of it, and how to make AI systems more human-centric. And actually the ending questions, we are entering now the festive season, the Christmas season, and if you have one Christmas wish to make for the AI future of our children, what would it be? And maybe we can keep the order that we started. So Anna, please.
Thank you. Actually, what the AI Sustainability Center is about to develop a children's rights lens in our screening. So there will be an auditing and assessment function if it's compliant to children's rights. And my Christmas wish to all children is they will have the same rights in the digital world as in the physical world.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Anna. And Galia, please, what's your view? You're muted, Galia.
For the kids, after all this e-learning and pandemics, to spend 2 weeks without computers.
That's true. Okay, thank you. And Anderson?
Well, for the first question on how to get the user perspective, I think that you need to involve the user from the start, from the first prototypes, from the first mock-ups, proof of concepts of your system, and to involve and to have a more curated data collection, meaning collecting data for the AI models. That's important. I think that's very key. And finally, for the Christmas wish, well, if we could still believe in Santa Claus, I would ask him to finally get us to give us AI that takes us to the next leap, great leap in productivity.
Thank you very much, Anders. And Andrea, please.
Yes, okay, so very briefly, so for the user involvement, this is very described, and my take is that we need to be able to model the user individual and social behavior and make it a central component of the technical design of AI. This is very key, And it's also a trustworthiness measure, because in that way we make AI more explainable and more trusted, because I mean, it will behave in the same way as the users will behave. So because of that, it will be more trusted. The Christmas wish. So my Christmas wish is for AI itself, and the wish is that it disappears. Not in the sense that we don't use AI anymore, but in the sense that it becomes so trustworthy and so pervasive in our daily life in the good sense. I mean, not in the controlling sense, but it becomes such a natural technology for us that we don't perceive it anymore. There was a famous quote from Mark Weiser from the pervasive computing environment that says pervasive technologies will have to disappear because they will be part of our daily life and we will not even perceive them. And we are almost there with all the IoT gadgets that we have. So my wish is that the same will happen for AI, because it will mean that it will be a trusted technology for all of us.
Thank you very much. These are really, really wonderful wishes, and thank you for your insightful presentations. Actually, I also brought an object with me. These are actually two objects that I would like now to share with you. These are probably the best known two robots, R2-D2 and C-3PO from the Star Wars movie. And at the same time, these robots are the most friendly, the most caring, and the most human empowering ones. So this is my vision for the future of AI. Thank you again for your participation. And thanks for the audience for joining us to understand how industry, researchers, policymakers, and experts, we are all joining forces in order to realize AI that is human empowering, that is trustful, and that is ethical as the main driver of our future, digital future. Thank you.
Okay.
Come here with me, Sylvia.
Thank you again for all moderators, speakers, all participants. Really a very good finish of the day. Today we learned about data spaces, which are the future of Europe. A lot of efforts on this direction. We've heard that trust is in the center of this, and special session devoted to trustworthy, explainable, ethical AI. So thank you very much, and we're continuing tomorrow from 10 Bulgarian time, Eastern European time, which is 9 Central European time, with a special session on digital health. Continuing 11:30 with future cities, and then 2 o'clock in the afternoon with disinformation. Stay with us, and have a nice evening today, and see you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.